The glass doors of Caldwell and Rowan International gleamed like mirrors under the morning sun. Riel Monet paused for half a breath before pulling one open. Her reflection disappeared the moment she stepped inside. Polished marble floors, open atrium, sharp lines, and quiet power. She gripped the strap of her leather purse a little tighter and walked toward the reception desk. She wasn't nervous, not after what she'd survived to get here. "Good morning, I'm Riel Monet, here for the 9 a.m. internship interview with Mr. Walker." The receptionist smiled politely and tapped on her tablet. "You're expected. Please have a seat, Ms. Monet." Riel nodded and turned, choosing the farthest seat in the waiting area. Her heels clicked like confidence across the floor, but her mind flicked back to her grandmother's voice that morning. "Be honest, be sharp, but don't let them shrink you." She wouldn't. Raised in South Shore, just a few blocks from where the lake touched concrete, Riel had grown up with the kind of pride that didn't need permission. Her grandmother, a retired school principal, had raised her after her mother left. No sob stories, no crutches, just structure and grace. She graduated top of her class in interior architecture from Howard. Now she was here, applying at one of the most prestigious real estate development firms in Chicago. She had studied their past 5 renovation portfolios and even memorized floor plans for some of their luxury properties. But what she hadn't expected was the man who walked into the waiting area 15 minutes later. He wasn't supposed to be there. Tall, lean frame, dark grey suit, no tie. His presence quieted the room. Kieran Rowan, K.O. founder, legacy heir, the man behind the Rowan name. He didn't look at anyone else but her. "Riel Monet?" She stood. "Yes?" "Walk with me." She blinked once, but didn't hesitate. She followed him down the corridor, past rows of glass offices and design panels pinned with blueprints. No words, just footsteps and tension. He finally opened a door and stepped inside a minimal sunlit room. She did, straight back, chin up. He didn't sit across from her. Instead, he leaned against the edge of the conference table, arms crossed. "You graduated, Howard." "Yes." "Top of your class." "Yes." "Why Caldwell and Rowan?" She didn't miss a beat. "Because your firm designs like it, understands both wealth and soul. Most people forget that spaces should feel like something, not just look like money." His jaw flexed. "I saw your sketches," he said. "You have a clean hand. Calculated, but emotional." "Thank you." "No," he said, standing straight. "Don't thank me, show me. First day is Monday. You'll work under Jasmine Till, directly on the Monroe Tower project. 2 weeks. Prove you belong." Riel's eyes widened. "Wait, this wasn't an interview?" "It was." She stood slowly. "And I'm hired? You're on trial, and I don't waste time." He walked out. That was how she met Kieran Rowan, and that was when everything began. The first day came fast. Jasmine Till was firm but fair, and the design floor was alive with fast-paced deadlines. Riel didn't flinch. She soaked in every line, every code, every CAD file with a hunger that outworked everyone. Kieran didn't speak to her, but he passed by often, too often. By the end of her first week, she was given independent design tasks for a client lounge in a high-rise redevelopment. She submitted her layout by Friday. By Monday, it was approved. "Monet's got taste," Jasmine had muttered during review. "Guts, too." Riel worked long hours, but she didn't complain. She was building something, finally in a space where she didn't have to prove her background, just her brilliance. 3 months in, she was offered a full-time design assistant position. 6 months after that, she was leading her own section. The whispers began when she started presenting at client meetings. She stood out. Young, black, composed. Not loud, not eager to impress, just grounded. And then there was Kieran. He began asking for her. Have Monet sit in on the Liberty concept brief. Let Riel test the lighting model. Ask Riel to review the raw specs. It wasn't flirtation. It was attention. Precise. Riel tried to stay focused. She told herself it was professional, but she saw the way he lingered when she spoke, the way he asked questions only she could answer, the way his gaze always found her after meetings. Then came Boston. It was supposed to be a 2-day trip to oversee the final walkthrough of a condo conversion near the Charles River. Kieran was speaking at a design forum the evening before. Riel had double-checked all the specs for the handover, updated the presentation, and confirmed the room bookings. Everything was smooth, until it wasn't. Storms delayed their return flight. "Airport's a mess," he said, glancing at his phone. "We're grounded until morning." Riel nodded. "Understood. I'll update Jasmine. You hungry?" She hesitated. "I mean dinner," he said, expression unreadable. "Not business. No expectations." She should have said no, but something in her chest answered first. Yes. They ate in the hotel restaurant. Quiet booth. Low music. At first, they talked about architecture. Favorite cities. He asked how she'd design a preschool if budget didn't exist. She asked why his company didn't build affordable housing. He said, "Maybe I need someone to push that." Then the conversation shifted. He told her about growing up in Winnetka, about never being allowed to express emotion because Rowans don't fold. She told him about her grandmother's Bible, duct-taped spine and all, and how she memorized Psalms before bedtime. He smiled for the first time. Not polite. Soft. Real. And when he walked her to her room, neither of them moved for a long time. "I'm your boss," he finally said. "And I'm not naive," she answered. "I'm not playing. I'm not a game." His hand brushed hers. That was all. But everything had changed. The next morning, Riel told herself it was nothing. One dinner, one almost touch, one look too long in a hallway. She arrived at the office early and dove into client specs. Kieran wasn't in, or if he wasn't visible. The project pipeline grew. So did her responsibilities. Jasmine began handing her entire segments to lead. A few senior designers side-eyed her progress, but Riel made sure every file, model and spec she turned in was sharp. No shortcuts, no dependency. Still, something had changed. Kieran no longer called for her through assistants. He showed up at her desk. He asked how she was doing, offered quiet notes after meetings, subtle but constant. They never talked about Boston, but the air between them always did. It happened 2 weeks later. The firm had landed a historic building revamp in Bronzeville, and Riel had volunteered to stay late to prep renderings. She thought she was alone, until she heard the elevator ding after 11 p.m. He walked in with no briefcase, no pretense. "You still here?" he asked. "Deadlines don't care about bedtime." Kieran smirked, then walked behind her desk to look at her screen. She didn't flinch. "I'm adjusting the facade concept. The original brick has to stay, but I'm adding lighting contrast." He leaned closer, his shoulder nearly touching hers. "You know why I picked you, right?" "Because I was qualified." "Yes. And because you weren't trying to impress me." "I still don't." "Exactly." He moved a fraction closer. His voice dropped lower. "I think about Boston. More than I should." Riel stood up, slow, deliberate. "You don't get to flirt with me in shadows, Kieran. I'm not a secret. I'm not a story you fold back into your pocket." He studied her. "I'm not playing." "Neither am I." She walked past him, picked up her purse, and left the office without looking back. After that night, the dynamic shifted. Kieran stopped hovering. At least publicly. But Riel started receiving exclusive invites to closed briefings, high-level brainstorming sessions. Jasmine raised a brow once, but said nothing. One day, an email arrived from Kieran's executive assistant. "Design presentation, Paris client pitch, 2-day trip, Rowan will lead, bring samples." Riel stared at the screen for a long time. Then she packed. The meetings went smoothly. The client was impressed with their vision, blending modern design with sustainable materials in one of the city's older districts. The firm's reputation soared that week. On the last night, the team had dispersed, and Kieran invited Riel to dinner again. She said no. But when she stepped into the hotel elevator, she found him already inside. "You didn't show," he said quietly. "I told you I wouldn't." "I know. But you're still here." The elevator doors closed. He didn't touch her, didn't step closer. He just looked at her like he was memorizing her face. "I haven't wanted anything real in a long time," he said. "And I don't know how to want it right." "That's not my job to fix," she replied. "I know." The elevator stopped. He didn't follow her out, but this time she turned. "I'll see you in Chicago." Back at the office, their work continued, on paper, unchanged. But late-night messages started. Quiet check-ins, lunches outside the building. They both knew the line they were walking, and they crossed it willingly one Friday evening after reviewing mock-ups at his penthouse. Riel had tried to keep it professional. She brought her laptop. They discussed renderings. She even said she'd leave before 9, but the way he looked at her, like he had memorized every breath, shattered her plans. He kissed her softly, and for the first time, she let him. Not because she didn't know better, but because she had never wanted anything so badly. They kept it quiet. Kieran insisted. He said the firm would implode with gossip, that the board wouldn't approve, that his mother, chairwoman emeritus, would see it as weakness. Riel didn't argue. Not at first. She thought what they had was fragile, too new to name. She gave it time. Days became weeks. Weeks became 6 months. She wasn't invited to industry galas. She watched him walk red carpets with donors and PR consultants. He would come over late, leave early, and she'd pretend it didn't sting. He made it up with private gestures, letting her design his townhouse library, helping her grandmother get physical therapy when she fell, telling her she made him feel seen for the first time in years. But Riel started noticing something. She was falling deeper, and he was floating just above the surface. One night, they lay in her bed, city lights casting lines across the sheets. "Kieran," she said softly, "are we always going to be a whisper?" He didn't answer right away. She turned to face him. "I'm not asking to be flaunted. I'm asking to be real." He exhaled. "This world, my world, it's sharp. I've fought hard to stay at the top. One wrong move. Loving me is a wrong move." His silence burned more than an insult. "I'll fix it," he said eventually. "You said that last month. I mean it this time." Riel nodded. But something in her heart folded in that moment. The next week, he left for Dubai on a development deal. Their last conversation was rushed. She asked him again to speak up, to acknowledge her presence in his world. He kissed her forehead and said, "Soon." That night, her period was late. 2 tests later, she stood in her apartment bathroom shaking. Positive. She texted him. No reply. She called. Straight to voicemail. She waited. No callback. 3 days later, her phone vibrated with a news alert. Rowan heir Kieran announces engagement to finance mogul heiress Bianca Channing. Her hands went cold. The headline blurred. But one thing was crystal clear. She wasn't the secret anymore. She was the shame. And she would raise her child alone. Sometimes, love begins where ambition meets destiny. But what happens when that same love demands silence? Have you ever been in a situation where you gave everything to someone who wasn't ready to claim you? Have you ever loved in secret, believing one day you'd be seen? Riel thought she was building her future, but Kieran was building a wall she couldn't see. If you were in her shoes, would you keep loving him? Or walk away before it broke you? Tell us in the comments below. And if this story already has your heart, hit like, share it with someone who'll feel it too, and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. 3 months passed. Riel didn't speak to anyone from Caldwell and Rowan. She didn't even speak to her old classmates who kept forwarding her the headlines. She quit the job quietly, with nothing but a short email and a boxed-up office she emptied herself after hours. She wasn't about to explain to anyone that the man they saw smiling beside, Bianca Channing, had once whispered her name like it was a promise. Pregnant, alone, and heartsick. Riel moved into a smaller place near the south side. She pulled out her sketchbooks and started freelancing for local boutiques. Her days were filled with nausea and muted tears. Her nights were spent lying on her side, hand on her belly, whispering, "I've got you. I won't disappear like he did." Her grandmother tried not to pry, but the knowing look never left her face. One night over dinner, she finally said, "You don't have to tell me who hurt you, Riel, but don't let them raise this child from your spirit." That was the moment Riel stopped crying. She shifted from heartbreak to preparation. Riel poured herself into work. Word of mouth brought her small clients, local artists, boutiques, wellness studios. She built branding packages, designed spaces, consulted on pop-ups. Each job added fuel to her new purpose. She named her business Modest House, not because she lacked vision, but because she believed dignity should live in every square foot, whether it was a penthouse or a studio apartment. By her 6th month, her baby bump had grown, and so had her reputation. She spoke at a local college about black women in design. She began sketching children's furniture in her free time. She never said Kieran's name, even when she felt Malik kick for the first time and wanted to scream that. This life deserved more than silence. She didn't reach for her phone. Riel's water broke on a warm September morning. No one was there to panic beside her. She calmly grabbed her overnight bag and called for a ride to Mercy Hospital. Labor was long, 19 hours. But when they placed the baby in her arms, all the pain, all the silence, all the nights she waited for a reply that never came, melted away. She named him Malik Cairo Monet. Eyes like Kieran's, dimples like hers, and he didn't cry much. He watched the world, studied it, just like his mother. For 4 years, Riel raised Malik with the strength she thought she'd lost. She worked during the day and studied him at night. His love of puzzles, his refusal to eat anything orange, the way he tilted his head when confused, just like someone she used to know. She didn't chase support. She didn't file claims. She told herself Malik didn't need Kieran. But sometimes, when he asked why he didn't have a daddy, her voice would tighten. She'd say, "You've got me, baby. That's more than enough." And on most days, it was. It was a Saturday in early spring when Riel stood behind her booth at the Hyde Park Design Expo. The non-profit she had been consulting for, Mothers Build Chicago, asked her to speak and showcase a small display of eco-friendly housing prototypes. It wasn't flashy, but it was hers. She stood in a soft green blouse and cream trousers, hair tied back, speaking to visitors who stopped to ask questions. Malik sat nearby, playing with a toy truck and sipping apple juice. He looked up at her often, his face bright whenever she glanced back. "You like your mummy's work, huh?" One of the guests asked him. Malik grinned. "She makes houses better." The man chuckled. "That's important work, little man." Riel turned back toward the table to grab another brochure when she heard it. A voice. Low, smooth, familiar. Her stomach flipped. "Kieran, we'll be late for the round table if we don't leave soon," a woman's voice said. "I'll catch up," came his reply. Riel froze. She turned slowly, and there he was, Kieran Rowan, standing 20 feet away in a tailored navy jacket, drink in hand, scanning the booths casually, until his eyes landed on her. Everything about him seemed still. His mouth parted. He blinked once, twice. Then he noticed Malik, and Riel saw his whole body go rigid. The cup in his hand lowered. His feet moved forward on their own. She grabbed Malik's hand. "Come on, baby. Let's go get your juice refilled." He looked up at her, confused. "But mine's not gone yet." "We're leaving," she said, already walking. Behind her, Kieran's voice cut through the murmurs of the crowd. "Riel, wait." But she didn't. She walked out of that expo like her spine was made of steel. Because this time? She wouldn't let him see her cry. Malik had fallen asleep after his bath. Riel sat on the couch, arms crossed over a thin blanket, mind racing. A knock echoed through the apartment. 3 slow taps. She didn't move, until the 4th came. She stood, walked to the door, looked through the peephole. Her chest squeezed. She opened it. Kieran stood in the hallway, eyes glassy, tie gone, looking like a man who had just stepped out of a decade-long illusion. "He's mine." Riel didn't answer. His eyes, the dimple. "He's—" "Yes," she said flatly. He looked away, then back. "You should have told me." "No, you should have cared enough to not vanish." "I didn't know." "You didn't want to—" She began closing the door. He stopped it with his hand. "I need to know him." "Do you?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because—" I looked at him and saw everything I was too selfish to protect. For the first time in 4 years, her voice cracked. "You broke me, Kieran. Do you get that?" He nodded slowly. "I do. And now you want to stroll back in because his eyes match yours?" "No," he said quietly. "I want to earn the right to be present." From behind her, a small voice interrupted. "Mommy." Riel turned. Malik rubbed his eyes. "Who's that man?" She looked back at Kieran. Her jaw tightened. "Just someone I used to know." She shut the door. This time, her hand didn't shake. For days, Riel waited for the knock again. It didn't come, but she knew he wouldn't disappear. Not this time. Not after what he saw. And she was right. On Wednesday morning, while walking Malik to his preschool just 3 blocks away, she saw a familiar SUV parked near the corner. He didn't get out. He just waited, watched. Malik was too busy singing to notice. But Riel's steps slowed. She turned her head briefly. Kieran didn't wave, didn't speak. He only lowered his head in acknowledgement. She didn't stop walking, but her stomach turned. By the end of the week, Riel ran into him again, this time at a neighborhood grocery store. He stood near the produce section, wearing jeans and a crewneck, looking like a stranger trying to remember how to exist in regular spaces. "Stalking is illegal," she said, without looking up from the apples. "I figured if I sent flowers, you'd toss them." "You figured right." He exhaled. "Can we talk? We are—" "Without knives in your tone." She turned to face him. "You don't get to ask for softness." "I'm not asking. I'm staying." "There's a difference." Riel's hand froze mid-reach. "I don't need you to be a father. Malik already has everything. I believe that—" "Then what do you want, Kieran?" His answer was immediate. "To be the man I should have been." Riel laughed bitterly. "Growth looks great on paper. Let's see how it handles real life." She pushed her cart forward. He didn't follow her this time. Malik had a weekend soccer event organized by the community center. He wasn't good at it, preferred puzzles and drawing, but Riel signed him up so he could learn teamwork. When they arrived that Saturday, she scanned the field and froze. Kieran was already there, standing near the other parents, hands in pockets, watching the kids stretch. He hadn't told her. He hadn't asked. But when Malik saw him, he lit up. "Mummy, that's the man from the design place!" Riel swallowed hard. Kieran knelt. "Hey, champ." Malik ran to him. Without hesitation, without history, just curiosity. Kieran lifted him effortlessly. "Ready to be the MVP?" "What's that?" "The best on the field." "I don't know how to kick good." "I'll show you." He glanced up at Riel. "I won't take him far. I just want 5 minutes." She didn't nod, but she didn't stop him either. Later that day, after the games ended, Malik sat in the back seat eating fruit snacks and humming. Riel stood near her car, arms folded. Kieran approached slowly. "He's smart," he said. "He's everything." "You did that." Alone wasn't said, but it hung in the air. I'm not here to disrupt anything, Kieran added. But I'd like to be included in something, if you ever let me. You want joint custody? She asked. No, he said gently. I haven't earned that. I just want presence, even if it's once a week. I'll follow your rules. Riel stared at him for a long time. Why now? Because when I looked at him, I saw myself, and I didn't like what that meant if I didn't stay. On Sunday afternoon, she let him come by. Nothing dramatic. No introductions beyond what Malik already understood. They built a tower of blocks. They made grilled cheese. Malik fell asleep halfway through a coloring book. Kieran covered him with the blanket on the couch and just stood there, watching him. He snores, Riel said quietly from the kitchen. I used to do that when I was his age, he replied. She nodded once. Kieran stepped closer, but not too close. I know this doesn't erase anything. It doesn't, but I'm here. For now, I'm not leaving. We'll see. Later that week, the local organization where Riel volunteered asked her to host a fundraiser for affordable housing. It was small, local, but Kieran showed up. He didn't sit in the front. He didn't announce his presence. He stood quietly in the back. And when she spoke about raising Malik, about the challenge of designing spaces for dignity, her eyes swept across the room and landed on him. He didn't move, but something in his face cracked. She could see it. After her speech, he waited outside. You've always had more spine than anyone I know, he said. You just never looked long enough to see it. That's not true. No? She asked. Then why was I a secret? His answer came after a pause. Because I was weak, and I thought strength meant keeping my life separate. Compartmentalized. She folded her arms. And now? Now I realize strength is letting people see your whole truth, and standing in it anyway. Riel held his gaze, and walked away without responding. That night, as she tucked Malik into bed, he looked up at her with sleepy eyes. Mummy. Yes, baby. That man, the tall one, he makes my chest feel warm. Riel stilled. What do you mean? Like I know him before, like he's mine. She kissed his forehead hard. He's lucky to know you, Malik. He yawned. I want him to come back again. Riel turned off the lamp and whispered to the dark, We'll see. Monday morning came with silver clouds and cold air clinging to the windows. Riel moved quietly through her small kitchen, sliding Malik's lunch into his backpack while he counted raisins by the table. 1, 2, 3. She turned the lid on his thermos. What's today's rule, mister? He grinned, cheeks full. Be kind. No hitting. Say thank you. Good man. As she reached for her keys, she froze. There it was again. SUV, same corner, same presence. Kieran didn't get out, but when she stepped outside, their eyes met through the windshield. She didn't wave, didn't frown, just walked. She knew he was trying, but she also knew trying didn't reverse history. Back when they were together, Kieran Rowan had two sides. The private one, soft, steady, the man who listened to jazz while cooking, who kissed. Her shoulder absent-mindedly as he read architectural magazines beside her in bed. And the public one, calculated, guarded, cool. A man born into expectation and groomed to control narratives. It was the public version that humiliated her, the one who smiled at press conferences while she bled quietly at home. Now he stood at the edge of her world, holding both versions in his hands, unsure which one he was allowed to bring into her space. That week, Riel let him pick Malik up from preschool on Saturday morning, just for a few hours. She wrote out instructions, printed emergency contacts, and packed 2 snacks. Even though she knew Kieran's schedule would have made most fathers panic. But he arrived on time, alone, no assistant, no car service. He wore sneakers and jeans. Where are you taking him? She asked. Lego exhibit, downtown. He hates noise. I already bought headphones. She raised a brow. I'm not here to prove I know him. I'm here to learn. Riel handed over the small bag and studied his eyes. Don't lose him in the crowd. I'd lose myself before I let that happen. For the first time in 4 years, Riel sat on her couch with no Malik tugging at her leg or asking for snacks. The apartment was too quiet. She tried to catch up on client emails, drafted a design proposal, tidied Malik's closet. Nothing stuck. Her phone buzzed once around 12:45. Kieran, he's doing good. Wants to show you his Lego plane when we get back. She smiled despite herself, and hated that she smiled. That evening, when Kieran dropped Malik off, Riel opened the door expecting just them, but behind Kieran stood a woman, poised, well-dressed, in her early 50s, and unmistakably familiar from all those charity event photos. Rowan Matriarch, Kieran's mother. Riel's body tensed immediately. I asked her to come, Kieran said quietly. I didn't want to lie anymore. The older woman studied Riel with cool grey eyes. I see the child. Riel crossed her arms. You can say his name. It's Malik. May we come in? Kieran asked gently. No. He sighed. He's asleep. We just need 5 minutes. Riel stepped outside, closing the door behind her. I don't know what you think this is, she said to his mother. I think, the older woman replied, that my son made a mistake he has to live with, and that child is a Rowan whether we like it or not. I don't need your name. He doesn't either, but he'll want it one day. And when he does, I intend to be there. Not as a savior. As his blood. Riel blinked slowly. You're 4 years too late. Then to Kieran, don't ever bring her here uninvited again, and she walked back inside. The next day, he showed up alone. Riel didn't answer the door. She cracked the window instead. You ignored my boundary. I know. You don't get to make this about legacy. I just wanted her to know the truth. She's not entitled to it. She's his grandmother. No, she's the woman who made you ashamed of me. Kieran lowered his head. You're right. I know. Silence. He stepped back from the door. I'm done making choices behind your back. Then stop showing up unannounced. I will. He looked up. But I'm still showing up. That night, Riel sat on her bed staring at old photos. Ones she never posted. Ones she almost deleted. There they were, her and Kieran, half smiles in the corners of conference rooms, hotel mirrors, meeting lounges, always behind closed doors. She never told anyone about them. And yet, here she was, mother to the living replica of the man she once trusted most. She opened her sketchbook, flipped to a blank page, and began drawing Malik's face. Beside it, she added a smaller sketch of Kieran's eyes. The resemblance hurt, but it also grounded her. She wasn't trying to erase the past. She was building something stronger with it. Kieran didn't show up for the next 2 days. Riel didn't call. She didn't wonder. At least, that's what she told herself. But by the 3rd morning, Malik stood by the front door in his socks, holding a crayon drawing. Is he coming today? Who? The man from the Lego place. Riel knelt. He's not on the calendar today, baby. Malik frowned. But I made this for him. She looked at the paper, a stick figure, with glasses and big hands holding a smaller one. She swallowed her breath. He'll see it soon, okay? Okay, Malik said, though his voice dipped with disappointment. That night, Riel attended a private design exhibit at a small studio in Wicker Park. A friend had invited her to display a few early sketches from her sustainable housing project. The room was warm, lit with suspended bulbs and exposed brick. Guests moved around slowly, wine in hand, murmuring words like texture and intentional. Riel stood by her panel quietly. She didn't care for the praise. She was proud of her work. She didn't need applause. But her breath caught when she turned and saw him, Kieran. Standing on the other side of the room, no security, no entourage, just him. He wore a charcoal sweater and black jeans. His eyes met hers across the art. He didn't move. Neither did she, not at first. He finally approached. "You never told me you drew by hand. You never asked." He looked at the sketch labeled Oakwood Commons, Phase 2. "It's brilliant," he said. "I don't need compliments. It's still brilliant." Silence passed. Riel folded her arms. "Why didn't you come see Malik?" "I needed to step back. I pushed too fast. I brought my mother without asking. I made this about me again." She tilted her head slightly. "That self-awareness is new. I've had 4 years to reflect." She glanced down at her shoes. "He made you a picture," she said, then waited at the door for 2 mornings. Kieran's face shifted. "I'm sorry. Don't say it to me. Say it to him." They left the gallery at the same time. Rain misted across the sidewalks, soft and quiet. They walked beside each other without speaking. Half a block from her car, he finally said, "I used to think power meant control, being untouchable, emotionless. And now? Now I think it means showing up when you'd rather hide." She stopped walking, looked up at him. "You made me feel like a ghost." "I know. You disappeared without a word. I hated myself for it. You still did it." "I still did." Riel nodded slowly. "I'm not the same girl you left. I don't want her," he said quietly. "I want the woman who raised our son without flinching." Sunday came with sunlight and pancakes. Malik sat at the table drawing while Riel cleaned the kitchen. A knock sounded on the door. She peeked through the curtain. "Kieran." She opened it. This time, without hesitation, "Hey," he said. "I was hoping I could say something." "To me?" He smiled softly. "No, to him." Riel stepped aside. Malik turned. His whole face lit up. "Hey," he said, jumping down. "You came back." Kieran knelt. "I'm sorry I missed our play-day. I was being slow. But I brought you something." He handed Malik a wrapped tube. Malik unrolled it. It was a poster, hand-drawn by Kieran. A building with giant windows, rooftop gardens, and a slide from the 2nd floor. "What's this?" "A house, just for you and Mummy. Not real yet. But it's in my mind." Malik's eyes grew wide. "You know how to draw?" "I'm learning. Can we build it?" "Someday." Malik threw his arms around Kieran's neck without waiting. "I forgive you." Kieran looked up at Riel. His voice cracked. "Thank you." Later that evening, Riel invited him to stay for dinner. Nothing fancy. Just spaghetti, garlic bread and laughter. Malik told jokes that made no sense. Kieran laughed, like they were the funniest things in the world. Riel watched from the stove, unsure what the ache in her chest meant. When Malik fell asleep with pasta sauce on his cheek, she carried him to bed. Kieran stood near the door, keys in hand. "I can go." "You don't have to," she said without turning around. He stepped closer. "I never forgot you. You sure forgot how to act like you knew me. I'm trying to relearn everything." Riel looked up, and for the first time in 4 years, her voice softened. "Start by showing up again next week." "I will." 4 years ago, the night before Kieran boarded the jet to Dubai, Riel stood in his penthouse kitchen wearing one of his old hoodies and her heart in her hands. They had just finished reviewing concept renderings for a South Loop project. But the conversation shifted, like it always did, when real life intruded. "I can't keep doing this," she said quietly. Kieran looked up from his laptop. "I can't keep waiting to be introduced, to be seen. I'm not a secret, and I'm not your assistant anymore." He stood and walked over, placing his hands on her waist. "You're not a secret. You're mine." "Then say that out loud." He kissed her forehead. "After Dubai, I promise." Riel looked him dead in the eye. "If you fly out and things aren't different when you get back, I'm done hiding." "I hear you," he said. But she saw something else in his eyes, something uncertain, and something selfish. The next morning, after he left, Riel threw up twice before noon. She chalked it up to stress, until the nausea returned the next day. And the next. She stopped by the corner pharmacy and stared at the pregnancy tests for 5 full minutes before grabbing one. She didn't cry when it came back positive. She sat on the edge of her tub and held her stomach. Then she picked up her phone, texted Kieran, "We need to talk. Please call me when you land." Hours passed. No response. She called, voicemail. She waited until the next morning. Still nothing. On the third day, Riel walked to a coffee shop around the corner to clear her head. She ordered green tea, checked her emails, scrolled through the local news alerts out of habit, and stopped cold. Rowan engaged to Channing heiress. Exclusive photos from Dubai, the caption beneath. The photo showed Kieran in a navy suit, hand on Bianca Channing's waist, smiling. The world around her buzzed, machines whirring, orders being called, out, feet shuffling across the floor. But all she heard was silence. She stood there, tea in hand, as the nausea returned in waves. But this time, it wasn't from pregnancy. It was betrayal. Cold, public, loud, and final. She left the coffee shop in a daze. Back at home, she sat on the floor of her apartment, knees to her chest. No tears, just breath after breath, trying to make sense of how a man who held her like glass could shatter her like concrete. She didn't scream. She didn't call. She simply deleted his number and packed everything that reminded her of him. Photos, sketches, little notes scribbled on napkins, and stuffed them into a shoebox. That night, she lay on her side, hand over her stomach, whispering, "I'll protect you from this world, I swear." Riel never heard from him again. No explanation, no message, no denial. He disappeared like she'd been a detour he never planned to take. Her grandmother noticed the shift in her. "You're quieter," she said one morning while folding laundry. "Like you're shrinking on purpose." "I'm just tired," Riel replied. Her grandmother paused. "Then rest. But don't let him win by staying invisible." Riel resigned from Caldwell and Rowan that same week. She didn't give a speech. No farewell drinks. She cleared her desk at 9 p.m. when the office was empty. She took one final look at the place that had launched her dreams, and broken them too. The next day, she registered her business, Modest House. She started with local contracts, coffee shops, boutique showrooms. Every design she created was a declaration, "I'm still here. I'm still building." And when she began to show, her belly rounding under wide-cut jackets, she didn't explain it to anyone. She owed no one her story, only her son. On a warm evening in late September, Riel walked into Mercy Hospital alone. Her water had broken 2 hours earlier. She rode in the back seat of a neighbor's car, breathed through each contraction with silent determination. 12 hours later, after a quiet storm of pain, tears, and clenched fists, Malik was born. They placed him on her chest, and Riel looked down at the face that would remake her world. He blinked slowly, calm, observant, like his father, but softer, gentler, more hers than his. She named him Malik Cairo Monet, because even though his blood carried Rowan, his identity was hers to shape. Malik came into the world quietly. No fanfare, no waiting room filled with flowers or anxious relatives, just Riel, tired, teary, and in awe. He didn't cry much, not when they gave him his first bath, not even when the nurse clipped the tag to his ankle. But his eyes never stopped moving. "You see everything already, don't you?" she whispered, stroking the small cap of hair on his head. "You don't know it yet, but you changed everything." And in that sterile hospital room, with soft monitors beeping in the background, Riel made a silent vow. No matter what he's missing, he'll never feel unloved. The first few months blurred together. Midnight feedings, diaper changes, crying that came without warning and stopped just as suddenly. Her grandmother moved in temporarily to help, but Riel took the lead. She didn't wait for anyone to save her. She took freelance design work between naps, held Malik on her chest during client Zoom calls, Woke up early to adjust floor plans and renderings before the sun broke over Chicago's skyline. The money wasn't great, but it was steady. She stretched every dollar, bought diapers in bulk, accepted hand-me-downs without shame, and every time she felt herself slipping, mentally, emotionally, she'd press her lips to Malik's tiny fist and whisper, "You are enough, so I will be too." By Malik's first birthday, Riel had built a small but loyal client base. She officially moved out of her grandmother's place into a modest two-bedroom apartment in Bronzeville. She decorated it with soft lighting, warm tones, and second-hand furniture she refurbished herself. Her living room doubled as her studio. Her nights belonged to Malik. She posted none of it online. No baby photos, no cryptic quotes, no dramatic "he left me" posts. She simply lived. And while the pain of what Kieran did never fully disappeared, it no longer took center stage. Her son had stolen that spotlight. "Where's my daddy?" The question came when Malik was 3, sitting cross-legged on the rug, flipping through a picture book. Riel froze. She looked up from her laptop, heart stumbling. "What do you mean, baby?" "I have a mommy. Elijah has a daddy too." Riel set the computer aside and sat next to him. "Some families have 2 parents, some just 1, some have 2 mommies, or 2 daddies. Ours is a mommy and Malik family." "But did I have a daddy?" She paused. "Yes. Where is he?" She touched his curls. "He made a choice not to be with us, but it wasn't about you, never about you." Malik nodded slowly. "Okay." And that was it. For then, but Riel knew more questions would come, and she prayed she'd always have the strength to answer them without letting bitterness poison the truth. On Malik's 4th birthday, after he fell asleep with frosting on his cheek and balloons, still swaying in the corner, Riel sat at the dining table and pulled out her journal. She tore out a page and started writing. "Kieran, he's brilliant. He reads early, loves puzzles, hates loud toys. He eats strawberries like they're candy. He looks like you, but thank God he laughs like me. He asks about you. I never lie. But I never fill in your silence either. I used to think telling you would break me. But the truth is, you already did. And somehow, I'm still standing. We're still rising. Riel." She folded the page, but she didn't mail it. She tucked it between the pages of an old sketchbook and never looked at it again. Months later, on a rare night off, Riel attended a community mixer hosted by a local non-profit for black creatives. The venue buzzed with music, laughter, and business card swaps. She sipped her wine and listened to a poet perform a set about rebuilding after betrayal. When the applause ended, she turned toward the bar and froze. He was there, Kieran, talking to a developer from uptown, laughing, alive, whole, unbothered. It had been nearly 5 years, and he still carried the same calm confidence, the same guarded eyes. He hadn't seen her yet. She could leave, slip out unnoticed. But something inside her didn't move. Something held her in place. He turned. Their eyes met. His face drained. Riel didn't blink. She let him see her, all of her. Then she turned around and walked out the side door into the cold night. No tears, no shaking hands, no collapse, just breath, controlled, and one quiet thought: you don't deserve to be the first to speak. The next morning, Riel woke up before the sun. She stood in the hallway outside Malik's room, coffee in one hand, her other resting against the wall, listening. His soft breathing came steady, curled up under superhero sheets, safe in the world she built, one brick at a time. But her mind wasn't quiet. It echoed with a face, a voice, a betrayal that had shape again. She hadn't seen Kieran in years, and now she could still feel the weight of his stare like it followed her home. But this time, it wasn't pain sitting with her. It was power. She'd survived. She didn't shatter. She didn't need him to fall apart. She had already risen without his name, his support, his presence. That's what made her dangerous now. And she knew it. Riel's routine stayed sharp. She rose early, packed lunches, answered client calls between school drop-offs, and met deadlines with the same focus she once gave to rebuilding her dignity. Modest House had expanded. Her designs were now featured in Chicago's local architecture circles. Word had spread. A small community center had her on retainer. She mentored 3 student interns from a city college. She had become a quiet pillar. Not famous, but respected. And never once had she needed the Rowan name to do it. That thought made her stand taller every morning. One Saturday afternoon, Malik sat on the couch flipping through photos on a tablet. He had found one tucked away, an older picture of Riel standing in front of a luxury high-rise. "Was this your job?" he asked, turning the screen toward her. "Yes, baby. That was before you were born. Did you make those buildings?" "I helped." "Why did you stop?" Riel paused. "I wanted to build things where people felt safe, not just rich." Malik blinked. "Was my daddy there too?" She froze. He had asked before, but this time it was different. Direct, clear, heart-aimed. "He worked there," she said carefully. "We used to know each other very well." "Did he like you?" "Yes." "Did you like him?" Riel breathed in. "I did." "Then why did he leave?" She looked him in the eye. "Because sometimes people don't know how to stay, even if they want to." 2 weeks later, an email landed in her inbox from the board of a non-profit design coalition she occasionally consulted for. "Dear Ms. Monet, we're thrilled to invite you to speak on our next panel about sustainable design and family-focused architecture. One of our newer board members, Kieran Rowan, specifically recommended your name. Please let us know if you're available." Her fingers froze on the keyboard. Of course he did. Subtle, calculated, cowardly. She almost declined on impulse. But then she looked over at Malik, drawing spaceships with washable markers on the wall calendar. And she remembered the promise she'd made, to never let anyone shrink her. So she clicked reply and typed, "Happy to speak." Confirmed the date. She pulled out an old folder of designs from her early years. Layouts for family-focused units. Models for affordable multi-level duplexes, diagrams sketched with a newborn on her lap. She laid them out across her floor and smiled, not because they were perfect, but because they were hers. The woman she had become, the mother, the builder, the visionary, had nothing to prove. Not to Kieran, not to the world. But maybe, just maybe, it was time for her to be seen again. This time, on her terms. Her grandmother came over to help with Malik. As Riel laid out her outfit, tailored navy jumpsuit, clean heels, gold, hoop earrings, her grandmother sat on the edge of the bed watching her. "He's going to be there, you know," she said gently. Riel nodded. "I'm counting on it. You sure you're ready?" "I've been ready since the moment he thought I'd break and stay broken." Her grandmother smiled. "Then walk in like you own the place. Because, baby, the truth is, without you, it wouldn't stand." Saturday morning came with light rain. Not the heavy kind, just enough to blur the skyline in a soft haze. Riel stood in front of the mirror, tying the last button of her satin blouse. She wasn't nervous, but she felt something stir inside her. She hadn't stepped foot inside the West Point estate in nearly 7 years, and now she was going back. Not for revenge, not for approval, but because she had been invited to speak. The West Point Foundation's Board of Trustees had finally opened its doors to younger leaders and innovators. Kieran, now chairman, had made it clear. No strings, no family politics, just your voice, your vision. That's what they want to hear. She had almost declined. But Monroe, her ever-direct assistant, had reminded her of something she once said on stage at a youth summit. "You don't heal to hide. You heal so your presence can hold space others thought you didn't belong in." That morning, Riel wasn't walking into that estate for Kieran. She was walking in for the version of herself who had once left it in tears, carrying a son in silence. The West Point ballroom looked exactly as she remembered. Vaulted ceilings, hanging lights like stars, tables dressed in soft linens and hushed conversations. As she entered, a few heads turned. Some recognized her from recent press features about Modest House, some from her past. But Kieran? He stood near the far end, deep in conversation with a logistics director, until he saw her. Their eyes met. He didn't smile. He didn't approach. He just nodded once. And she nodded back. No drama, no tension, just recognition. Then she walked to the podium and began preparing her notes. The panel began with a series of soft introductions. Then Riel was asked to speak. She stood confidently, voice steady. "I didn't start my business because I wanted to prove a point," she said. "I started because people told me families like mine didn't belong in blueprints, that our neighborhoods didn't need design. They needed order." I disagreed. Murmurs of agreement rose. She continued, "Design isn't about square footage. It's about dignity. It's about whether your child has sunlight in his bedroom. Whether a mother has enough counter space to prepare a meal without bumping into shame." The room was silent. Even Kieran. She didn't look at him once. She didn't have to. She knew her words were hitting. She wrapped up with grace and thanked the audience. They clapped, harder than she expected. And when she stepped down from the stage, she did so knowing, this time, she didn't need to be introduced to anyone. Her work had already done that. Kieran found her near the exit, right as she slipped her notebook into her bag. "You looked powerful up there," he said. "I was." He nodded, hands in his pockets. "I want to talk. If you have time." She paused, then tilted her head. "I'll give you 5 minutes." They stepped outside, under a covered arch as the rain softened into mist. "I've watched you grow," he said, from a distance. "And I know distance isn't the same as presence. I'm not proud of that." Riel stayed quiet. "I didn't show up for you when it mattered. I disappeared when you needed truth. I broke every rule I promised to keep." She still didn't speak. Kieran pressed on. "But when I saw Malik, when I looked at that boy and realized he had my eyes and your strength, I knew silence wasn't an option anymore." Riel finally looked at him. "You don't get to rewrite this. You left. I picked up the pieces without your name on a single form. You didn't show up for the heartbreak, the bills, the first teeth, the nightmares. I know. You don't get applause for returning to a life you abandoned. I'm not asking for applause." "Then what are you asking for, Kieran?" He swallowed. "Consistency. Time. Space to be what I should have been from the start." Riel took a deep breath, then said something she hadn't said out loud until now. "Malik loves you. I see it." Kieran blinked. "But if you hurt him the way you hurt me, you won't see him again. Do you understand me?" His voice cracked. "I do." They didn't hug. They didn't cry. But they understood each other. For the first time since everything broke, there was no tension, just terms. And for Riel, that was more than enough. That was power. She didn't chase closure. She became it. Have you ever walked away from someone who didn't realize what they had until it was too late? Have you ever had to rebuild yourself in silence while someone else lived loudly without consequence? Riel didn't get an apology when she needed it. She got it when she no longer depended on it. And sometimes, that's when it matters most. What would you have done in her place? Would you let someone return after disappearing when you needed them most? Comment below. We want to hear your truth. And if this story moved you even a little, hit that like button, share with someone who needs it, and subscribe for what's coming next. Malik was humming again. Riel could hear him from the kitchen, voice low and playful, piecing together one of his elaborate puzzles on the living room rug. Saturday mornings had a rhythm, soft music, oatmeal, Malik's voice filling every corner of the home. But this morning, her mind was somewhere else. The panel was over. The applause had faded. And Kieran's words from that conversation under the archway wouldn't leave her. "I want space to be what I should have been from the start." He hadn't asked for forgiveness, not directly, but he'd asked for access. And that, somehow, felt heavier. A knock came at 10:03 a.m., not urgent. Not loud, but intentional. Riel looked through the peephole. It was Kieran, alone again. No car idling behind him, no coat over his arm. Just him. And in his hand, 3 small white envelopes. She opened the door slowly. "Good morning," he said. "Saturday," she replied, arms crossed. "I know." She looked at the envelopes. "What's that?" He held them up. "Letters. One for you, one for Malik, one for myself." Riel didn't answer. "I wrote the truth," he said. "And I figured, if I never get to say it again, I should at least leave it written." She hesitated, then took the envelopes. He stepped back. "I won't stay, but is he home?" "Yes. Would it be okay if I said hello?" Riel studied him. "He's in the living room." Kieran nodded and stepped in. Malik looked up from his puzzle as soon as Kieran entered. "Hey, bud," Kieran said, crouching down to eye level. "You came again." Malik beamed. "Did you bring more drawings?" "Nope. Just myself. Want to help me finish this rocket?" Kieran smiled. "I'd be honored." Riel stood quietly by the hallway, arms still folded. She didn't interrupt. For 10 minutes, they built the rocket. Well, Malik built it. Kieran mostly watched and held the pieces. "You're better at this than I ever was," he said. Malik shrugged. "Mum says puzzles are good for big thoughts." She's right. Riel's chest tightened at the way they spoke, like they had known each other all along. After Kieran left, Riel tucked Malik in for a nap and sat at her desk. She opened the envelope marked Riel. Inside was a single page. "Riel, I lied to myself for years. I told myself I couldn't risk the business, that my mother would never accept you, that the board would strip my credibility if they knew. But the truth is, I was afraid of how deeply I felt for you, afraid of the weight you carried with so much grace, afraid I would never be enough for a woman like you. So I ran. I chose easy. Legacy. A last name over a life. And I'll carry the shame of that choice forever. I missed your pregnancy, your strength, the nights you probably broke down and still fed our son with steady hands. I don't expect you to ever let me in completely, but I'll keep showing up. Not as a millionaire. Not as a Rowan. Just as the man who still sees you as the most powerful architect I've ever known. Not of buildings, of love, of resilience, of our son, Kieran." Riel didn't cry. She folded the letter, placed it in her journal, and walked into her bedroom. It didn't undo the past, but it made space for the present. And for the first time, that space didn't hurt. Later that afternoon, Malik woke from his nap still sleepy, asking for fruit and cartoons. Riel handed him an apple slice and sat beside him on the couch. He looked up. "Did you read the letter?" "I did. Did it make you sad?" "No, baby. It made me proud." "Why?" "Because your daddy is learning how to speak with truth." Malik nodded. Then, as if something clicked, he asked, "Can he come with us to the Science Museum next week?" Riel smiled. "You want him there?" "Yes. He listens when I talk, like he hears everything." Riel ran her fingers through his curls. "Then we'll invite him." The Science Museum buzzed with the noise of excited children, clattering footsteps, and distant narrations from display speakers. Bright lights, fossil replicas, and solar panels lined the walls. It was Malik's favorite place in the city. Kieran stood at the front entrance, scanning the crowd until he spotted Riel. She wore a simple white tee under a denim jacket, black slacks, and sneakers. Malik gripped her hand, pointing up at the towering rocket model in the window. When their eyes met, Kieran smiled, cautious but steady. Riel gave him a small nod, and Malik ran straight to him. "You made it." "Of course I did. Wouldn't miss it." Riel joined them. "Let's start in the energy hall. Malik wants to see the wind turbine demo." "Lead the way, Captain," Kieran said, following behind them. Inside the museum, the three of them walked through exhibit after exhibit. Malik asked 1,000 questions about magnets, dinosaurs, why volcanoes erupt. Kieran answered everyone he could, and when he didn't know, he asked Malik, "What do you think?" Riel watched quietly, noticing the rhythm that had started to form. They weren't a family, not yet, but they were becoming something that made sense in Malik's world. And that meant something to her. In the planetarium dome, they sat together in the dark while stars projected above. Malik leaned his head against Kieran's arm, whispering, "That's the Big Dipper." Kieran whispered back, "That's the only one I know." Malik giggled softly. Riel turned her face slightly to hide her smile. In that quiet room, where the sky moved above them, she saw something she hadn't allowed herself to hope for. Peace. Not perfection. Not a fairy tale. Just peace. And the man beside her? He wasn't the one who left her crying in a cold apartment. He was the one learning how to stay. Outside the museum, Malik walked ahead with a new stuffed dinosaur in hand. Kieran and Riel stood near the curb. "Thank you for inviting me," he said. "Malik wanted you there. I think you did too," he said gently. She looked up at him. "Don't assume." "Okay," he said, holding her gaze. "Then I'll ask. Did you?" Riel hesitated. "Then yes, I did." He stepped closer. "Can I take you both to dinner next week?" She studied him carefully. "You want a schedule now?" "I want consistency, predictability. I want to be woven into his world, not tacked onto it." Her lips pressed into a line. Then she nodded once. "One dinner." He smiled, genuine. "I'll be there." That night, Riel tucked Malik into bed. "Did you have fun today?" she asked. He nodded sleepily. The stars were cool, but Daddy made them better. Riel's heart tugged. She hadn't told him to call Kieran that. Hadn't even suggested it, but it came naturally. "Do you like having him around?" she asked. "Yeah, he listens better than other grown-ups." She laughed under her breath. "Well, I'm glad." He yawned. "Mom?" "Yes, baby?" "Do you think he sees me?" Her breath caught. She sat beside him, brushing his curls back. "He sees all of you, Malik." His eyes fluttered shut. And for the first time in a long time, Riel believed that too. An hour later, Riel stood at her window, arms folded as the night breeze floated through the screen. Her phone buzzed with a message from Kieran. Today meant everything. Not because it was perfect, but because it was real. "Thank you for letting me be real too." She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she sat down at her desk, opened her journal, and wrote one sentence at the bottom of her last entry. "He's showing up. And so far, that's enough." Tuesday came with a downpour, the kind that turned sidewalks into rivers and made umbrellas useless after 5 minutes outside. Riel had cancelled her sight walk that morning and instead sat at the dining table, catching up on invoices while Malik colored beside her. He was quiet. Too quiet. She glanced over. He wasn't drawing. He was staring at the window. "What's on your mind, little man?" "Is Daddy coming today?" She paused. "No, not today. But you'll see him soon." He nodded slowly, then reached for his blue crayon. "Can he come to my class project day?" Riel hesitated. She hadn't even looked at the date on that flyer yet. "We'll see, okay?" "Okay," Malik said softly, but his eyes didn't match his voice. They held hope and something else. Longing. Later that evening, after Malik fell asleep with a stuffed dino in one arm and a bedtime book in the other, Riel checked her phone. 3 unread messages from Kieran. "Saw a pic of the lakeside center you designed. Stunning. I'd love to take Malik to the aquarium next weekend. Is that okay? Also, my mom asked about him. I didn't give her an answer. Just thought you should know." Riel stared at the last message the longest. She didn't reply right away. Instead, she walked to her bedroom window and watched the rain fall. Kieran's presence had grown consistent, yes, but his family was a storm she wasn't sure she'd ever let back into Malik's world. Still, a soft part of her believed he meant it when he said, I'll follow your rules. So she finally typed, "Aquarium sounds fine. Let's talk about the school project after. Also, your mother doesn't get access just because you're doing the work. Stay focused on the now." His reply came almost instantly. "Understood. And thank you." Kieran showed up early. Riel hadn't expected him, but when she opened the door, she found him. Standing there in jeans, a wet hoodie, and holding a large cardboard box. "I know I should have called," he said quickly. "But I made something." She raised an eyebrow. "For who?" "For Malik. For the project day. You don't even know the theme." He grinned. "City of the future." "He mentioned it last week." She blinked. He held up the box. "I built a model. With solar panels, rooftop gardens, and a monorail loop. Everything made from recycled pieces. I thought, maybe you two could look it over together." Riel opened the door wider. "Come in." Malik's eyes lit up when he saw the box. "You built that?" "I had help from an old friend who works in model prototyping," Kieran said. "But the idea was mine." "Want to help me paint the edges?" Malik grabbed his art apron. "Let's go." They spent the next hour painting rooftops, placing miniature trees, and deciding where the ice cream shop should go. Riel watched from the kitchen, her coffee long gone cold. This wasn't temporary energy. It wasn't guilt disguised as presence. It was real, and Malik felt it too. After Malik went down for his nap, Kieran stood at the edge of the kitchen, drying his hands on a paper towel. "Thank you," he said, "for letting me in." "I'm not letting you in," Riel said. "I'm letting you be what he needs." He nodded. "Fair. You're doing better than I expected. I'm trying to match your standard." She looked at him. "You'll never match me. But you can complement what I've already built." Kieran smiled softly. "I'd take that honor every day if you'd let me." That night, Riel sat beside Malik while he finished his bedtime story. He tapped her shoulder. "Can Daddy come to the school day?" "You really want him there?" "Yeah. He listens like you do." She kissed his forehead. "Then yes, he can come." The day of the school project arrived on a crisp Friday morning. The air smelled like pencil shavings and cafeteria cinnamon rolls. Riel had taken the day off, Malik's carefully combed curls bouncing as he proudly walked through the front doors of South Grove Elementary with his parents on either side of him. Yes, both of them. Kieran walked quietly, carrying the City of the Future model wrapped in protective plastic. Riel held Malik's backpack and snacks. They didn't speak much in the car ride over, but the silence wasn't strained. It was settled, mutual. They knew today wasn't about them. Inside the classroom, dozens of models were lined on desks. Cardboard towers, bottle-cap traffic lights, crayon-smeared parks. Malik's eyes widened as he looked around, then turned to Kieran and said, "Ours is the tallest." "Not just tallest," Kieran whispered, crouching beside him. "It has the most life in it." Riel watched them from the side, arms folded, lips tight. She wasn't smiling, not yet, but she was observing, absorbing, measuring the weight of this moment against the years that came before. When it was Malik's turn to present, he stepped up with the model resting on the desk, fingers slightly fidgeting. But the moment he looked back and saw both Kieran and Riel giving him soft, reassuring nods, his voice came out clear. "This is the kind of city I think we should have in the future," he said. "It has solar panels so we don't make the earth sad, and it has houses that help people who don't have homes. And the ice cream shop never closes." The class laughed. "My mommy helps people get houses like this, and my daddy made this city with me because now he's here." The teacher clapped first, then the rest followed. Riel blinked fast. Kieran looked at her. She didn't return the glance. Not immediately. After school, Malik walked ahead on the sidewalk, swinging his backpack, a ribbon pinned proudly to his shirt. Kieran broke the silence. "I wasn't ready for that last line." "I didn't write it for him," Riel said. "I know." They reached the car. Malik hopped in the back. Kieran leaned against the passenger side, looking at her. He believes in me. He's a child. That's what they do. I want to live up to it. I'm going to keep showing up, Riel. She nodded slowly. Then do it. Quietly. Consistently. Without needing to be praised for it. I don't need praise. She finally looked him in the eye. But you needed permission. Kieran didn't respond. He simply opened the car door for her and closed it gently after she got in. That night, after Malik had fallen asleep and the apartment returned to its usual calm, Riel sat at her desk with the project model still resting on the side. She traced one of the miniature buildings with her fingertip and let her mind drift. Not to the man Kieran had been, but to the man Malik was pulling him toward. Maybe some mirrors don't reflect who you are. Maybe they reflect who you could have been all along. And sometimes, those mirrors look a lot like your son. It started with a phone call from Malik's school on a Thursday afternoon. Nothing serious, just a minor tumble on the playground, a scraped knee and a shaken ego. But by the time Riel arrived at the nurse's office, Kieran was already there, crouched beside Malik's chair with a juice box in hand. He looked up when she walked in, eyes alert but calm. I was nearby. They called me too. Riel knelt beside them. You okay, baby? Malik nodded, sniffling. I tripped on the mulch. Daddy said it's because I run like a noodle. Riel gave Kieran a look. He shrugged. It made him laugh. And it had. Malik had dried his tears by the time she signed him out. As they left the school, Malik insisted on riding with Kieran. Riel hesitated, but eventually agreed, following behind in her own car, watching them through. The windshield, her son grinning from the passenger seat, chattering a mile a minute. That night, after Malik fell asleep early from exhaustion, Riel sent Kieran a short text. Thanks for being there. His reply came seconds later. Always, and not just for the big stuff. She stared at the screen longer than she needed to. Consistency. He was doing it. No grand gestures, no emotional pleas, just presence. Quiet, firm, real. The next morning, a bouquet of sunflowers arrived at her office. No note, no message, but she knew who sent them. She smiled, then got back to work. Sunday came, and with it, a small barbecue at a friend's backyard in Bronzeville. Riel brought deviled eggs and juice boxes. Kieran showed up with smoked ribs and a perfectly timed arrival that didn't pull attention, just added to the rhythm. Everyone noticed the man hovering protectively near Malik. A few eyebrows lifted. One or two quiet questions followed Riel to the kitchen, but she shut them down with a polite nod and a firm, "We're figuring it out." Later, when the kids played tag in the grass and music played low from a speaker by the grill, Riel stepped onto the porch with a paper plate in hand and found Kieran sitting alone, sipping water. "You do okay with crowds now?" she asked. He smirked. "They're easier when you don't have to perform. You used to perform all the time." "I know." She sat beside him. "I didn't come here to be congratulated," he said. "I came because Malik's in that yard and I want to be wherever he is." Riel took a bite, chewed slowly. "You're getting good at saying the right thing. I mean it." "I know." He looked at her, quietly, the weight of the moment resting between them like an unopened door. "I miss knowing what you're thinking," he said. "You gave that up," she replied. He nodded. "And I'm earning it back. One real moment at a time." They didn't speak for a while after that. Just sat side by side, watching their son run free. That evening, as the sun dipped low and the last of the guests waved goodbye, Malik sat on the couch in his pajamas, coloring in a book while Riel folded blankets. Kieran stepped into the kitchen and started washing the few dishes left behind. Riel paused at the doorway, watching him. He didn't see her at first, just quietly rinsed plates, stacked them neatly, wiped the counter. No audience, no ego, just a man helping where he could. She walked over, grabbed a dish towel, and dried beside him. No words, just shared rhythm. And when their hands brushed over a plate, she didn't pull away. He looked up. Neither did he. The next morning, brought a strange stillness to Riel's apartment. Malik had spent the night at his friend Elijah's for a birthday sleepover. It was the first night he'd been away since he was born. Riel had expected to catch up on rest. Instead, she'd cleaned, folded laundry, checked her inbox 3 times, and stood in front of the TV for 30 minutes without hitting play. By noon, she gave up the illusion of productivity and texted Kieran. Malik's still at Elijah's. "You want to come over for a bit?" She expected him to say no or ask for later. Instead, "On my way." 25 minutes later, he knocked. No flowers, no grand gestures, just Kieran in a plain black tee and jeans, holding a bag of groceries. "What's that?" she asked as she let him in. "Brunch," he said, walking past her and straight into the kitchen like he'd always belonged there. "I figured, if Malik gets pancakes at Elijah's, you should get something better." She raised an eyebrow. "You cook now?" He glanced back at her. "No, I've always cooked. You just never stayed long enough to find out." She leaned against the doorway, watching him unpack spinach, eggs, avocados, a fresh loaf of sourdough. No suit, no monogrammed sleeves, no mask either. And that part was true. He moved with ease, comfortable in the silence, comfortable with her watching. It was a version of Kieran she'd never fully known. The man not curated by boardrooms or magazine interviews, just him. Frying eggs, toasting bread, slicing avocado with careful fingers. 10 minutes later, they sat at the table, sun streaming through the windows, 2 steaming plates between them. The food was good, really good. "You're full of surprises," Riel said, sipping her coffee. He smiled. Only the good kind now. She didn't respond, but she didn't look away either. There was something in the air between them, not tension, but weight. History with a heartbeat. When the plates were cleared and rinsed, she walked him to the door. He hesitated before leaving. "I've been thinking," he said, "about how I used to need control of everything." She nodded, arms crossed. "I remember. It kept me from loving you out loud." She met his eyes. "And from loving our son at all. I'll spend the rest of my life unlearning that." She searched his face. "Words are easy, Kieran." "I know," he said. "That's why I'm not asking you to believe me today." "Then what are you asking?" "Let me show up tomorrow." And the next day. And every day after that. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she opened the door. "You're still on trial," she said softly. "I wouldn't expect anything else." Then she did something neither of them expected. She leaned forward and pressed her lips gently to his cheek. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't a reunion. But it was something. And that something lingered on his skin long after the door closed behind him. Malik stood on tiptoe at the bathroom sink, brushing his teeth with foam spilling from the corners of his mouth. Riel leaned against the doorframe, arms folded, watching his reflection more than his routine. He was growing fast. His curls were tighter, his legs longer, his questions deeper. But what struck her most was how much he was starting to look like Kieran, not just in the eyes or the jawline, but in the way he paused before answering, or how his face softened when listening. He caught her staring and grinned through the foam. "What?" "Nothing," she said, shaking her head with a small laugh. "Spit and rinse." He obeyed. Later, when he was tucked under his covers with his dino plushie in hand, Riel sat at the edge of the bed and brushed his hair back from his forehead. "Daddy said he's coming to game night Friday," he mumbled. "He told me too. Do you like when he comes?" Riel paused, considering the weight of a child's question. "I like how you feel when he comes." Malik smiled softly, rolling to his side. "Me too." After he drifted off, Riel walked into the living room, pulled her sketchpad from the shelf, and sank into the couch. But her pencil didn't move. Instead, she stared at the blank page. For several minutes, mind replaying the last few weeks. Kieran at the museum. At school, in her kitchen. Washing dishes like he'd always been there. She still didn't trust him. But she also couldn't deny something had changed. She heard it in Malik's voice. She felt it in her chest. She saw it in the quiet way Kieran looked at their son, not with guilt, not with desperation, but with gratitude. At exactly 9:43 p.m., her phone lit up. "Kieran, can I call?" "Riel, sure." It rang almost instantly. She answered. "You okay?" he asked, voice low and warm. "Yeah, just thinking about everything." A pause. "I get it," he said. "Want me to come over tomorrow for the book fair?" "Only if you're not coming to impress anyone." "Already got the only person I want to impress," he said. She smirked, eyes closed. "Good night, Kieran." "Good night, Riel." The next morning, Kieran arrived at South Grove Elementary with 2 coffees and a perfectly wrapped stack of books for the donation drive. He handed 1 cup to Riel with a quiet, "No sugar, just almond milk," and she looked at him like he'd read her mind. "Lucky guess," he said. Inside the school gym, parents and kids wandered through tables filled with gently used books, bake sale items, and a reading station where teachers performed stories in silly voices. Malik ran straight to the fantasy section. Riel and Kieran followed behind, not touching, not close, but aligned. "Remember when we talked about the future?" Kieran asked softly. "I remember a lot of things," she replied without looking at him. "I didn't imagine it like this." "What did you imagine?" "I didn't." That was the problem. They stopped near a table where Malik was inspecting a book with a dragon on the cover. He looked up. "Mom, can I get this one?" "Of course." Kieran knelt beside him. "Want me to read it tonight?" Malik's face lit up. "Yeah." Riel watched them, her heart tugging and calming all at once. Later, when they stood near the exit with bags of books and a few cookies Malik couldn't resist, Kieran touched her elbow lightly. "Can I take him for the weekend?" She didn't answer right away. "Just one night," he added. "I want him to see my space. I want to make dinner. Just the 2 of us." Her guard lifted, but not completely. "Call me before bedtime. No sleeping in his room. He gets anxious in new spaces. I'll take care of him like you would." "That's the only reason you're asking?" Kieran nodded. "And it's the only reason you're saying yes." She gave him a long look, then handed over the overnight bag she had already packed. "You're lucky I trust my son more than I trust you." "I know." That night, Riel sat in a quiet apartment again. No cartoons, no crayon wrappers, no spilled juice. At 8:12 p.m., her phone buzzed with a FaceTime ring. She answered and saw Malik in a cozy bed, stuffed animal tucked under his chin. "He made pasta," Malik said proudly. "Did he burn it?" "Nope. He let me stir the sauce." Riel smiled. "That's because you're the real chef. I saved you some. Good. Now, get some rest." Kieran's face appeared behind Malik's shoulder. "We're doing okay. I can see that." After they hung up, Riel didn't sketch. She didn't clean. She didn't scroll. She sat on the couch and breathed deeply, slowly, like someone learning to feel safe again. And maybe she was. The next morning, Kieran brought Malik home right on time. Fresh clothes, hair combed, smiling. Riel opened the door in her robe, eyes still adjusting. "Someone woke up at 6 to make you something," Kieran said. Malik held up a small card made of construction paper and glitter. It said, "Best Mom Ever," in shaky letters. Riel knelt and hugged him tight, glitter dusting her shoulder. Kieran stood at the door, hands in his pockets. "I should get going," he said. "I've got a meeting in a bit." She looked up at him. "You did good." He blinked. "What?" "Last night. All of it." "You did good." His chest rose slightly. "That means more than you know." As he turned to go, she added, "Kieran?" He turned back. "You should stay for breakfast." He smiled. Say no more. And for the first time in a long time, he stepped through the door like he had a place there. Not because he asked for it, but because he earned it. Riel had never imagined her kitchen could feel like this again, filled with warmth, light, and laughter. The smell of cinnamon toast lingered in the air as Malik sat at the counter eating his second slice, legs swinging. Kieran was at the stove, flipping scrambled eggs with quiet confidence. No apron, no trying too hard. Just him, moving like someone who knew his way around a place he wasn't trying to impress. Only respect. Riel leaned against the doorway with her mug, watching. She wasn't ready to name what she was feeling, but she wasn't running from it either. "You know, I never thought I'd see the day you'd willingly cook breakfast in sweats," she said, teasing. Kieran glanced over his shoulder, grinning. "Sweats mean I'm staying. Suits mean I'm performing. I stopped performing for you a long time ago." She raised an eyebrow. "Did you?" "I tried, failed, relearning every day." He set the eggs on a plate and placed it gently in front of Malik, who looked up with wide eyes. "You didn't put peppers, right?" "No peppers. Scout's honor." Malik beamed. "You're getting better, Daddy." "High praise from the pickiest critic alive," Kieran joked, tousling his son's curls. Riel sipped her coffee quietly, the edges of her mouth tugging up. After breakfast, Kieran helped clean up. No asking, no hovering. He washed while she dried, their movements synchronized, natural, like they'd done it for years instead of weeks. When Malik went to the living room to play, Kieran leaned back against the counter, wiping his hands on a towel. "You don't have to say yes to this," he began, eyes serious. "But I want to take you both out next weekend. Just us, somewhere outside the city." Riel gave him a skeptical look. "Like what?" "There's a cabin in Starved Rock. I've had it for years, never used it. I thought maybe a change of pace would be good." Her first instinct was, no, too close, too much, too soon. But then she thought about Malik, about the way his face lit up when Kieran arrived, about how her own chest didn't clench anymore when Kieran stood close. "What's the catch?" she asked. "No catch, no expectations. You'd have your own room. I'd do all the cooking. You bring books, crayons and sarcasm. I'll bring whatever peace I can offer." She studied him. "If Malik wants to go, I'll consider it." Kieran nodded. "Fair." He glanced at the clock. "I should get going." Riel walked him to the door. Before he stepped out, he paused. "I'm not trying to rush anything." She nodded. "I know. I just want to give us all something worth remembering." For a moment she looked like she might say something else, but instead she opened the door. "Drive safe," he smiled. "Always." Later that evening, while Malik was drawing spaceships on the floor, he asked casually, "Can we go to the place Daddy talked about?" "You'd want that?" Riel asked, not looking up from her laptop. "Yeah. I want us to all be in one place, not just for a few hours." Riel's fingers froze over the keys. She shut the laptop gently. "Okay, we'll go." The way Malik lit up made it feel like Christmas came early. Friday afternoon, the three of them drove out of Chicago. Malik sat in the back seat with his headphones on, eyes glued to the window as trees blurred past. Kieran drove, one hand on the wheel, the other resting near the gear shift. Riel sat beside him, arms crossed, coat draped over her lap. They didn't talk much at first, but the silence wasn't heavy. It was measured, careful. "Didn't think we'd ever take a trip like this," he said after a while. "Neither did I. Thank you for letting me try." Riel looked out the window. "Don't thank me. You're here for him. I'm here for both of you." She didn't respond, but she didn't turn away either. The cabin was tucked between tall pines, with a wraparound porch and warm amber light spilling from its windows. Inside it was simple. Wooden beams, cozy furniture, an open kitchen. Malik ran from room to room shouting, "I call the big bed." "You're 5, Riel called back. "You get the little one." Kieran chuckled. "At least he's excited. That makes one of us." He looked at her, serious now. "If you feel unsafe, say so. We'll leave." "I mean that..." She nodded. "I don't feel unsafe." "Then we're okay?" "We're trying." That night, after Malik fell asleep in his loft bed, they sat on the porch, wrapped in blankets, a thermos of tea between them. "I used to imagine moments like this," Kieran said. Before I ruined everything. You didn't ruin everything, Riel replied. You abandoned it. Big difference. He looked down. I'm sorry. You've said that. I'll keep saying it until my actions make it unnecessary. She turned to face him. You've come a long way, Kieran. So have you. A beat passed. Then she whispered, You see him, don't you? Every day. And you see yourself in him? More than I ever saw myself in me. That made her heart skip. Kieran leaned slightly closer. Can I ask you something? Depends. If I never left, if I had chosen you back then, you didn't. I know. But if I had, do you think we'd be happy? She looked up at the stars. I don't know. But I know this version of us knows what it costs to get here. He nodded, slowly. And in the silence that followed, nothing needed to be said. They were no longer standing on opposite ends of a broken story. They were meeting somewhere in the middle of a new one. The air inside the cabin felt different on Sunday morning. Not heavy, not rushed. Just calm. Kieran stirred eggs quietly in the pan, while Malik played with toy cars on the rug. Riel stood on the porch, arms folded over her chest, watching the trees sway in the wind. She wasn't avoiding anyone. She was absorbing. Something had shifted. In the past few days, Kieran hadn't forced anything. He hadn't pushed his way back into her heart. He'd shown up, again and again, in small ways that whispered louder than apologies. She turned when she heard the screen door creak open. He handed her a cup of coffee. Figured you might need a refill. Thanks, she said, fingers brushing his as she took it. He leaned beside her on the railing. He slept through the night. He hasn't done that in months, she admitted. That's on you. You've built him a safe world. She gave a half smile. Now you're stepping into it. I don't want to disrupt it. I want to add to it. They stood in silence for a few more minutes. Kieran. He looked at her, attentive. I believe you love him. I'm even starting to believe you see what you missed. But loving us isn't about grand gestures or making up for the past in one weekend. I know. It's about showing up when it's messy, when he throws a tantrum, when I'm too tired to be patient. When life isn't wrapped in a bow, I'm not going anywhere this time. She nodded, then turned back to the view. I still need time. I'll give you all the time you need. Later that afternoon, Malik found an old deck of cards in a drawer. They ended up sitting at the dining table, playing Go Fish and eating snacks. Laughter came easier now, even for Riel. At one point, Malik dozed off on the couch with a book on his chest. Kieran covered him with a blanket, then sat beside Riel on the love seat. Remember when you used to fall asleep mid-movie? He asked with a grin. Only when you picked boring ones. He laughed. You used to nudge me when you thought I was drifting off, she added. I'd pretend I wasn't. I knew, he said softly. I liked watching you rest. She looked at him, really looked at him. You're not the same man I left. I hope not. I think I missed you before I ever admitted it. I never stopped missing you. She breathed deeply, feeling his sincerity. But we're not the same people. No. But maybe that's a good thing. He reached out, his fingers brushing hers. She didn't pull away. Her voice was quiet. You're good with him. I want to be better. I want to be good with you. She didn't say yes. She didn't say no. But her fingers stayed where they were, entwined with his. Monday morning came quickly. They packed up the car, cleaned the kitchen, and checked every corner of the cabin for Malik's toy pieces. The ride back to the city was mostly quiet, but not tense. Malik slept in the back seat, clutching his stuffed bear. As they approached her building, Riel broke the silence. You can come up if you want to help carry his things. Kieran nodded. Once inside, Malik ran to his room like he never left it. Kieran stood awkwardly in the hallway until Riel gestured toward the living room. You don't need to hover like a guest. He smiled and sat. She returned with water and placed a glass in front of him. I have a question, she said. Anything. If you hadn't seen Malik, would you have come back? He didn't flinch. Yes. Why? Because I never stopped caring. But I was ashamed and selfish. I convinced myself you were better off. And now? I want to do the work. Not for credit, not for applause. Just to earn your trust again. Riel studied him. I've heard that before. Then let me show you something different. A long pause passed before she nodded slowly. I don't forgive easily. I don't expect you to... But I do notice consistency. I'll be consistent. She exhaled, setting the empty glass down. I'm not saying this means anything starts over. I understand, he said quickly. This is still your space. I'm grateful to be in it. Just then, Malik called from his room. Mom, Daddy, come see my drawing. They both stood, walked down the hall side by side. Malik held up a piece of paper. It was a crayon drawing of 3 stick figures, one with long hair, one tall, one small in the middle. Above it, in crooked letters, my family. Riel's throat tightened. Kieran crouched beside him. This is amazing, buddy. Malik beamed. That's you, Mummy, and me. Kieran looked at Riel. Her eyes glistened, but she smiled. You hungry? She asked, voice soft. I could eat, Kieran replied. She turned toward the kitchen. Then stay for dinner. He didn't move for a second, almost stunned, but then he smiled. Nothing would make me happier. The smell of sautéed onions filled the apartment. Riel stood at the stove, stirring the pot, while Malik sat at the table coloring. Kieran set the table without being asked, quietly, intentionally, like he was learning her rhythm all over again. Dinner wasn't fancy, just pasta, garlic bread, and a tossed salad. But the energy around the table felt different. It wasn't strained. It wasn't trying too hard. It felt like a beginning. Malik talked the most, bouncing between stories from school and the cabin. Riel listened, laughing occasionally, while Kieran filled their glasses with water and nodded like every word mattered. After dinner, Kieran helped with the dishes. He didn't ask. He just moved. Remember when you couldn't boil water? Riel teased. Rinsing plates. I still can't. That's why I'm drying, he said with a grin. She glanced at him, and the smile lingered on her lips. They worked in sync, side by side, a rhythm once lost but not forgotten. When they finished, Kieran looked toward the living room where Malik had fallen asleep again, sprawled on the couch, crayon still in hand. I should get going, Kieran said softly. Let you both rest. Riel dried her hands and turned to face him. Wait, he paused. She walked over to the coffee table and picked up the drawing Malik had made earlier. You see this? He nodded. I used to wish he'd stop asking about you. It hurt every time I had no answer. I'm sorry, but now, she continued, holding the drawing between them, I want him to have his father. If you're really staying this time, then stay. Kieran stepped closer, his voice steady. You're sure? I'm not promising us. I'm promising him a chance to know the man who created him. I'm promising myself peace, whatever form that takes. He took the drawing from her hands and looked at it again. I want to earn more than a place on his paper. I want to earn space in your life. Riel's voice was barely above a whisper. Then show up. He looked at her, eyes soft. Can I come by tomorrow morning? Help get him ready for school? Yes. He stepped forward like he wanted to hug her, but stopped. Riel noticed, then took a step herself. She hugged him first. It wasn't long. It wasn't passionate, but it held years of pain. Regret, hope, rebuilding. When she pulled back, her eyes were glassy. I didn't think I'd ever be here with you again. I never stopped praying I would be. She gave a small, tight smile. Good night, Kieran. Good night, Riel. He walked to the door, paused, looked back one more time. Then he left. The next few weeks unfolded slowly. Kieran showed up every morning, sometimes with coffee, sometimes with breakfast, always with a quiet eagerness to help. He took Malik to the park, helped with bedtime stories, even attended a parent-teacher meeting. He didn't push for more. He let Riel lead. One night, after Malik had gone to bed, Riel joined Kieran on the couch. They talked about the years between them, what they lost, what they learned. I kept thinking, Kieran admitted, that the next win in business would fix the hole I felt. And did it? No. It made it wider. Riel nodded. I kept thinking raising Malik alone would be enough, and it was, until he asked about you. I'll never forgive myself for missing those years. You don't get to rewrite them, but you're writing now. He looked at her. Are we rewriting us? She didn't answer immediately, but she leaned in, resting her head on his shoulder. I don't know what this is yet, she said, but I know it's worth exploring. He reached for her hand. She let him hold it. 3 months later, Riel sat in a courtroom, heart steady, posture tall. She was finalizing Malik's legal name change, adding Kieran's last name officially. Not because she had to, but because Malik wanted it. Because Kieran had proven, again and again, that he wasn't going anywhere. After the judge approved the order, Kieran stepped into the hallway beside her. Lunch to celebrate? He asked. Riel smiled. Malik already picked the place, pizza and root beer. They both laughed. He's going to be thrilled, Kieran added. You've earned his trust. I want to keep earning yours. She turned to him, serious. Don't rush this. I won't. They walked side by side, not holding hands, not needing to. The connection was there, in the pace of their steps, in the silence they now shared with comfort. 1 year later, Riel stood on her porch again. But this time, the sun was rising, not setting. She held a cup of coffee while Malik played with his toy cars by the door. Behind her, inside, Kieran was making breakfast. They weren't rushing toward a wedding. They weren't pretending the past hadn't happened. They were choosing each other. Every day. Mom? Malik called. Yeah, baby? He grinned. Daddy said we're going to the park after pancakes. She smiled. Sounds like a good day to me. And it was, because healing wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was steady, quiet, unfolding like the sunrise, one light at a time. Before you go, let me ask you something. Have you ever loved someone who walked away, only to return when you least expected it? Or maybe you've been the one who had to rebuild, protect your peace, and put your child first. Stories like Riel and Kieran's remind us that second chances aren't always granted. They're earned. And sometimes love grows stronger in the quiet moments, long after the damage is done. If this story moved you, don't scroll away. Like the video to support the channel, comment your thoughts or personal experiences below. We read every one. Share this with someone who needs hope today. And subscribe to Mr. Charles' Stories so you never miss a story that speaks to your heart. Your story matters too.